Okay, so once again, it's really wonderful to be here with you all, and thank you so much for inviting me, Liz. And yeah, just really wonderful, isn't it? The Zoom thing that I am in the UK and in my home, and there you are in Kentucky in your homes, and we're able to come together like this. And just to say that I live with a spinal injury myself, so I've got incomplete paraplegia, and I've had a lot of pain for a long time. So I had my injury in 1977, which is most of you, a lot of you won't have even been born then, but that's the way it is. And it's been accompanied with musculoskeletal pain and neuropathic pain. And I learned to meditate when I was 25, when I was in hospital in New Zealand, which is where I was at the time. And I found meditation really, really helpful over the years. And I've, really dedicated myself to being curious, I guess, about my mind. And not so much, it's not mind over matter in some sort of simplistic sense. I still have pain, but more how I could, one of the ways I sometimes talk about it is training my mind to work with me rather than against me. Because very often our reactions to the pain just make the pain worse. I'm sure you're all aware of that. And if we can learn to change our sort of automatic reactions to something a little bit softer, a little bit kinder, less tense, then the experience of pain does ease. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and I started teaching other people back in 2000. And I run an international charity called Breathworks, which specializes in mindfulness for people with pain and illness. So we've taught lots of people over the years, and it's just really, really wonderful to be here with you all. So I'm just going to quickly show you what we're doing over this series, because Liz has invited me to do a series of classes. So yeah, it's mindfulness techniques for pain. Can you all see that? Good, yeah. And last week we had a bit of a look at distinguishing between primary pain and secondary pain. And then today we're going to be looking at using breath awareness to release tension. And I'm going to keep today's session very experiential so we can actually feel what it's like. And then next week, we're going to look at how to get perspective on our thoughts. And this is really interesting that, I remember for myself, it was a complete revelation when I realized that I could be aware of my thoughts. Up till then, my thoughts were just happening. But it's a very interesting training that we can learn to be aware of our thoughts. So I'll say much more about that next week. Then on the 16th, we're going to look at pacing and how to manage our energy. And then we've got a week off for your Thanksgiving. And then we'll be summing up with looking at how to develop a new way of dealing with our daily life that's less reactive and a bit more helpful. So I'm just going to leave that there. That's just really just a little overview of what's happening. So breath, this is what I'm going to focus on today. We're breathing in and out all the time. Apparently we breathe something like 22,000 times a day. So ever since the first breath when we were born, we've been breathing in and out 22,000 times a day, roughly. So that's a lot. And it's one of these things that's just automatic, but like the heartbeat. And it's just something that happens. And we need to breathe. I'm sure you all know this. We need to breathe in order to take oxygen from the outside world and deliver it to the cells in the inside world. So that's very interesting, isn't it? That we've got these bodies that need something that's outside us, and it needs to get delivered to the billions of cells in the body that are inside us. So we have the in-breath, which it's a complex biochemical process. I don't need to go into that, but the in-breath, we're drawing in air so that the oxygen can dissolve into the blood and get transported to the cells. And then carbon dioxide is a waste product in the cells. We have all our cells are like little factories, burning up oxygen and burning up food. And then the waste product is carbon dioxide. So then we've got another problem, which is, well, how do we get that out of the body to the outside world? And so that's the out breath. So I like to talk about breathing as being a delivery system. That's essentially what's happening. And the more sort of optimal our breathing is within our health condition or our body, then obviously that's going to help us have more energy, feel less tense, and so on. So one of the things that I want to look at tonight is letting go of holding our breath, because that's what a lot of us do when we're in pain. So we're just going to do a little exercise together, and do this in whatever way works for your body. So what I'm going to do is make a fist with one hand. If you can do that, make a fist with one hand. If you can't do that, you could lift your shoulders. If you can do that. If you can't do that, you could maybe clench your jaw. And notice what happens. Maybe not clenching the jaw, actually. That's not a good example. Maybe do something like scrunch your eyes up, tense your eyes. Okay. So choose what you're going to do. What I want you to do is just manufacture a little bit of tension in your body for a few moments. So I'm going to do this. So just do whatever you want to do now. And what's happened to your breathing? And if someone could unmute and tell me what's happened to your breathing. Yeah, Julie, I can see you can. Do you want to, I don't know, can people unmute, Liz, at the moment?
Yeah, they
so
should
Julie,
be able to.
if you want to unmute.
I stopped breathing.
You stop breathing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can.
I didn't even think about it. It just happened.
Exactly. And I can see, Liz, you're nodding as well.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. So there we are. We've got tension and we've got breath holding. And if we got the breath holding, then that's going to inhibit this delivery system. So now make your fist or tense however you are again. And now what I'd like you to do is imagine that you're breathing into that tension. That you're breathing into that tension. And what does that part of the body want to do as you breathe into it? It wants to release, doesn't it? See, isn't that interesting? Yeah, so you got the tension, you got the breath holding, you notice that you're tense, and you purposely breathe into that area, and then that area will soften a little bit. So I hope everybody got a bit of a sense of that. I can see some nodding going on out there. So the reason I'm bringing this in is because when we've got pain, we very often tense against the pain, don't we? It's very kind of normal human response. So we got the pain, and then we go, I don't like the pain. We tense against it and we start gripping in the body. We hold the breath. And then what happens, if you're like me, is your pain gets worse. Yeah, you could just, for those of you, I'm sure you've probably all got pain, unfortunately, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So just have a little experiment. So do your tension, your gripping, your breath holding, and just notice your pain. And does your pain get worse as you do that? Okay, and now release and breathe into that area. And does your pain dial back a little bit? Yeah, any comments? Anyone want to unmute and say what you noticed? I can see Donna said, yes, the breath stops, then releases when breathing through it. Yeah. So anyone want to comment on what happened to your pain as you did that little experiment?
It even seemed to spread a little.
The pain spread when you tensed and held your breath. Yeah, interesting. And then when you noticed that and you softened a little bit and breathed into that area, did your pain change at all? Did it dial down a bit again?
Yes.
Yeah.
It loosened up.
And loosened up. Yeah, good. Okay, Ron. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. Mine as well. And I have really breathed hard, breathe in the past when I'm tensed up and my pain gets bad. The deep breaths really seem to help.
Yeah, good. And then mindfulness is the ability to remember that in the moment. So mindfulness is awareness. So we're all tense and we're breath holding and the pain's awful. Mindfulness is the ability to think, this is what I'm doing. I'm tense. I'm holding my breath. Let me come into the present and let me choose to release a little bit. So anybody else want to comment? Excuse me. And Donna's saying the pain I have is from inflammation in the rib cage. Yeah, so a lot of us will have pain for all sorts of different reasons, but the principle is the same. You know, we're not able to get rid of the cause of the pain necessarily, but it's more about softening this extra pain that we, in a way, create through the tension and through the breath holding. And I don't mean that in a judgy sense at all. It's just what happens. We get tense and then the pain gets worse. But that's something that we're sort of doing through our habit. So just learning how to notice that and release, and notice that and release, and for that to become more of a new habit that can have a really profound effect on your quality of life. Okay, so we're going to do a practice in a moment, a mindfulness practice. But the other thing just to say is a lot of it's about attending to the out breath, because when we're doing this breath holding, we're not allowing the out breath to flow out, and the out breath is associated with calm. This is a very, very important point. The out breath is associated with the part of the nervous system which is calming. And often when, people say, take a deep breath when you're panicking or something, you take a deep breath in so you can then do a big breath out. And so if we're going around with this breath holding, we're not allowing this calming side of the nervous system to come online. And we're just caught up in the more activating part of the nervous system, because we've got these two parts, one that's to do with sort of action and the other that's to do with calm. Action is more the in-breath and calming is more the out-breath. So I'm going to lead a little practice now, and I'm going to be particularly asking you just to notice allowing the out breath to go all the way out. I don't mean forcing the breath. This is a very important point. I'm not going to do any sort of breathing exercises as such. So it's not laboring your breathing. It's not forcing the out breath, but it's more just noticing, am I holding and can I release a little bit? And if we let the out breath flow out, the next in breath will flow in of its own accord. And I'm very aware that, probably all of us here, we've got bodies that are tricky. And it may be that your breathing is inhibited because of your injury. So just work with what you've got. Yeah, we're just working with the parameters of our own bodies as best we can. Okay, so the first thing to do is to set ourselves up so we'll be as comfortable as possible. And I know comfort probably isn't an option for some of us. As comfortable as possible. How are your arms? Having your hands supported. Yeah, I always say at the beginning of any mindfulness practice to really take time about how we position the body and making sure that we're going to be as comfortable as possible. And then we can close the eyes if we want to. You don't have to, but you might find it helpful to close the eyes. Otherwise, you could lower your gaze. And just beginning to have a sense of settling. Settling into our position. And having a sense of the body as best we can. And again, I know for some of us, we won't be able to feel parts of the body, but we can still have an awareness of this body sitting here. And let's come to the face and see if we can let the forehead be soft. The eyes soft. Having a sense of the space between the eyebrows. If you're feeling tight there, as many of us do, you could imagine smoothing your eyebrows out from the center, softening this area between the eyebrows. Cheeks soft. And the jaw, the lips, the tongue soft. Many of us hold a lot of tension in the jaw. So letting the jaw be soft might help the flow of the breath in and out of the body. Getting a sense of the breath flowing down through the back of the mouth on the way into the body and on the way out of the body. Coming down to the shoulders. Think if we can let the shoulders drop into gravity. Again, very often we tense in the shoulders, but what's it like to let the shoulders just rest down into gravity? Coming to the chest area and beginning to tune into our breathing in this area. Seeing if we can allow the out breath to flow out and in the next in breath to flow in its own time. Being very careful not to force or rush or strain. Just getting interested in your breathing. Coming down now to the abdomen, the belly. Maybe there's some breathing here. Maybe there isn't, depending on your body. There's gripping and tension here. Just seeing if we can release a little bit. Now let's come to the upper back. It's very interesting. Very often we think breathing's only happening in the chest, but the ribs and the lungs are as much in the back as the front of the body. I'm getting interested. Can you feel breathing in the upper back? If you can't feel it, you could imagine it. And back breathing is naturally calming. Being aware of breathing in the back of the body brings online, this calming side of the nervous system. You've always been careful not to force, strain, just being interested. What about the rest of the back? Maybe there's some sense of breathing, maybe not. Just being interested. I often get pain in my back and I find, or I sort of imagine that breathing is massaging the pain, softening that tension that we investigated earlier. If you can't feel it, you could imagine it. Now including the arms, the feelings in the arms. If you've got feelings in the arms, just being aware of that. If you can't feel your arms, you can still have an imagined sense of them. And if there's gripping and tension against the pain, seeing if you can breathe into that a little bit. How are the shoulders? Allowing the shoulders to rest. And now let's include the legs. Got any feelings in the legs? Then being aware of that. If you can't feel the legs, then having an imagined sense of the legs. If you've got pain in the legs, notice if you're holding the breath and breathing into that area, softening, easing a little bit. Now broadening to be aware of the whole body. Getting a sense of the whole body, even if we can't feel the whole body. And just notice, are we tensing against pain and are we holding the breath? If we notice that, could we perhaps breathe into those areas a little bit and allow the out breath to flow all the way out? The in-breath to flow in quite naturally. Let's bring this little exercise to a close. If you want to move in any way that's appropriate for you, then by all means doing so. I'll take some deeper breaths, by all means doing so. Good. So let's hear from a few people about what you noticed, and you can either unmute and speak or you could use the chat box. Yeah, what was your experience doing that little exercise?
It's Gloria.
Hi, Gloria.
Normally, when I try to do this, I'm just focusing on the breathing. And what I noticed this time is that you said breathe into it. And so I breathed into the area that was hurting, and it really does make a difference. Whereas just focusing on the in and out breath really wasn't quite getting it.
Okay, good, good. So what do you think the difference is, like
I think
experientially
it's
for you?
because I'm focusing on that area as I'm breathing rather than on my chest or belly
Ah, okay.
of the breath, and trying to direct, I guess maybe it's just a positive vibe toward that area. So thank
Good.
you.
So when you did that, did the pain ease a little bit?
Yes, yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed that it kind of eased up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a wonderfully simple
She
little
said,
tool
"Well,
to have in your toolbox.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Did you want to say something, Larry, as well?
No, I just come on for the ride. No,
Great.
actually, Gloria did very, very well, I thought, in explaining what she went through and followed your instructions, and I did a little bit too, and it works pretty well.
I
Yes.
noticed he needs to work on softening his forehead
All
more.
right.
He tends to have a
Right now,
furrowed brow
yeah.
a lot, and he looks better now.
Yeah. You don't look like a worry wart all the time,
Yeah,
which I feel like I am. So
Oh, that's really great. Good.
very helpful.
This is Julie. Same
Hi,
with
Julie.
me, my shoulders and my neck, and I never even thought about my jaw until you said it. Because I clench, because my neck and shoulders are kind of like my pain spots a lot of times. And then it carries up to the jaw because I'm holding it tight. So that really helped me, focusing on that. When you said jaw, I'm like, oh my God, yes. Thank
Yeah, the
you.
jaw is such an interesting area to be aware of, because a lot of us,
We don't think
clench the
about
teeth.
it.
No, it's very habitual. Yeah. Yeah. So good. And how about your pain? Did that, when you release the jaw, did that have an effect on your
Yes.
pain?
Feels so much better.
Wow.
I mean, my biggest wish that I had someone to come here every day and massage my neck and shoulders, and I don't have that. So
Yeah.
this can help me use
Yeah.
these sort of techniques
Yeah, good.
to
Good.
loosen it up.
Yeah. And again, it's simple.
Right.
The main thing is to remember. And that's where the mindfulness comes in, because mindfulness is this present moment awareness. So to remember, I'm clenching my teeth again.
Yep.
And then if you keep coming back enough, it becomes a new habit. That's the really good news. It becomes a new habit. So rather than being this, it becomes more normal and more natural to be more at ease. And humor is very, very important with all this, because we will all forget. So you need to say, oh, I'm doing it again, rather than, oh, I'm a really bad person doing it again. It's more like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. And then every time you notice you're doing it and then you release, that's your training and that's your success. Yeah. I always like to say that when you notice you're not mindful, that's your moment of success.
Well,
Because
thanks
then
for pointing that out.
Yeah, because then you got your choice to come back. Because often people think, you're only successful if you're this perfectly calm, aware person all the time. Well, nobody's like that, because we're habitual creatures. But, I always say mindfulness is a win-win, because if you notice you're lost, that means you're aware. That's good. And if you're not lost, you're aware. So that's also good. So you cannot fail. Good.
The back breathing was new for me. I've done a fair amount of breathing exercises, and the back breathing, I'd not heard of that before. And I wonder if in other classes we've had, this question has come up from some people about what is meant by breathing into something. And I forget who it was who first mentioned that when you ask people to reflect on what happened, but I wonder if you could say a little bit from your perspective about or I can say from the breathing, the back breathing was like for me, the breathing into a spot, like by becoming aware of it, I imagine the air going into my back. And I don't know if that's what you mean, but that's how I've always done it, to imagine the air literally going into my elbow or into my
Oh, okay.
shoulder, or into
Okay.
my back. Yeah.
And when you imagine that, what's the effect?
Well, a couple of things. One, my breath gets deeper, I think. And two, there's a releasing and relieving that happens probably because of the awareness on the spot,
Yeah.
but also the breath getting a little deeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that's a really wonderful question, because, you know, we can take these things sort of literally, or we can take them kind of metaphorically. So we're not literally breathing into our elbow, but metaphorically we can imagine that there's a sort of more of a awareness current down to the elbow, and there is that quality of release. And because we're imagining breathing into that area, we will be deepening our breath, and having that deeper breath will be more calming. Back breathing, on the other hand, we can also take that quite literally, because I'll just move around a little bit so you can see. So, you know, we've got the lungs, we've got the ribs and the lungs. And if you say to someone, where do you breathe? Almost always people say here or here. They never say here, do they? But you could say here, because the ribs and the lungs are also, they're as much in the back of the body as the front of the body, which is very, very interesting. And maybe those of you who can manage this, you could try putting your hands on your back and see if you can feel the movement. If you can't manage it, you could imagine it. But there is literally air going into the back of your lungs. Yeah. So you can, so back, when I talk about back breathing, I'm literally meaning, you know, feeling into the movements and the air flowing into the back of the lungs. And I'm aware some of you won't be able to get a sense of this, but you can imagine it. And it is very interesting that when you're feeling really anxious and sort of, well, often with anxiety, we're moving forwards, aren't we? It's like we're worrying about the next thing. So that there's the strain in the body going forward. So if you drop your awareness, you imagine your awareness coming to your back of your body, is pulling you back from this rushing into the future anxiety thing. And there is evidence showing that awareness of breathing in the back of the body is naturally calming. So you can imagine that quite literally. Lower back, you can do that either metaphorically, like just imagine, like you're saying, you know, you've got these tight bits in your lower back and you're breathing down there. Now the air is not literally going into your lower back. But I think these things working metaphorically really works in the way that you said, Liz, and whatever works for you, whatever works for us. And for those of us who have got some mobility in the lower back, it's interesting that we've got the big diaphragm, which sits across the body here, and it attaches around the back to the inside of the spine. And it's got these long attachments down to the lower back. So every time your diaphragm moves, because your diaphragm moves down in the body, it moves down in the body in the in-breath and releases back on the out-breath. Every time that happens, there is movement of these ligaments that sit at the front of the spine. So the lower back is actually, it does move a little bit if you've got movement of the diaphragm. So that's also interesting, you know, that there can be the sense of, with breathing, there is this kind of massaging happening in the spine, depending, you know, very much on our condition. But I'm glad you asked that, because I know people do get confused by that, and I hadn't mentioned it, so that's really helpful. Yeah, and maybe even on the more literal level, because as I said, every cell in the body, we've got billions of cells, and every one of those cells is like a factory that's sort of burning up oxygen and producing carbon dioxide. It's not carbon neutral, I'm afraid. If our breathing is more relaxed, then you can imagine every one of those factories is more efficient. So you could imagine you got this factory in your elbow. By breathing in more deeply, that you know, that's going to be a more efficient factory. Or you could find a more aesthetic image. Factory is not particularly aesthetic, is it? But good.
I had always thought of the breathing end of it as a diversion. Really, your mind is concentrating on your leg spasms. And so then I would breathe and just think about breathing in, breathing out, trying to get my mind off of my legs. So really, I mean, this is entirely different from what I have done years
ago. And how did you find it today?
It really like the back end of it. Very interesting. I can relate to that really fast. As far as the legs, then I have a hard time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you can probably even look at what you just said in two ways, that you got your leg spasms. So you go to your breathing as a way to take your mind off the leg spasms. That's what I think you were suggesting, wasn't it? Yeah. But so that's a really good idea, really good technique. But while you're doing that, by coming to your breathing, you'll be interrupting all this kind of secondary tension. Because that, when we've got spasms, you know, because I get spasms, so you got the spasms, and then you start tensing against the spasms, and you start holding your breath against the spasms, and the whole thing just winds up. But by taking your awareness to the breathing, then you are taking your mind off the spasms, which can be helpful, and also it may actually be easing the spasms.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Because otherwise I can see some people nodding, where you got a spasm, you hold the breath, you get tense, you start fighting the spasms, and the whole thing just escalates. So by having the breathing as this kind of soothing place to come back to, that can help these kind of secondary reactions, I think.
Yeah. Something to work on.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little bit more input, and then I think we'll do another little practice to conclude the session. So this is going to be very, very brief again. So the breath, from a mindfulness point of view, let me just stop sharing for a moment. So I explained last week what mindfulness is, this word. And put at its absolutely most simple, you could say that mindfulness is awareness. At its absolutely most simple, it's being aware. And if we're aware of our body, our emotions, and our thoughts, then we're no longer kind of just lost in our experience. And most of us, most of the time, are lost in our experience, if we're honest. I think, you know, we don't remember when I first learned mindfulness, it was a complete revelation that I could sort of, I could have perspective on my experience rather than just being completely sort of fused with my experience. You know, I could think, oh, this is what I'm feeling in my body with awareness. This is what I'm feeling emotionally with awareness. This is what I'm thinking. And then I felt less in the grip of my experience. So I'm going to say more about that next week in terms of thoughts. So mindfulness is awareness, and it's present moment awareness. So we can actually be living our life as it's happening. Yeah, living our life as it's happening rather than completely lost in thoughts about the past and thoughts about the future, and missing the life that's happening right now. So it's being in the present as best we can. And then it's being in touch with our body. And I sometimes think for those of us who've got painful bodies or damaged bodies, obviously that's very paradoxical because it's the last place you want to be. You know, you just want to get away from your body, of course. But perhaps it's even more important for us to be in touch with our bodies so that we can care for our bodies and we can look after our bodies, because we're not necessarily getting the cues that we would otherwise get about what the body needs. So it's being in the body and it's being in the moment. It's letting go of secondary tension, which is what we've done tonight. This very, very simple technique of notice when you're gripping and breath holding and just breathing out and letting go and releasing. That's very, very powerful. And we're only going to be able to do that if we're aware. Otherwise, we just go through our life and we're like this, and we don't even know we're like this. And then eventually we look in a mirror and we think, oh my goodness, my shoulders are up around my ears. But with mindfulness, we can be more aware of that kind of thing more of the time, and then we can make these wise choices. And then finally, with mindfulness, we can begin to feel into the way experience is changing all the time, which again can be quite a new thought for people, because of course experience seems often very static. But if we reflect more deeply, we realize that everything is a process. So our thoughts are a process. They're not these great big rocks in our head, but actually they're changing all the time. Well, again, I'll say more about that next week. Our emotions are changing. Our physical pain, this is very, very important. Our physical pain is changing, because pain can feel absolutely solid, can't it? And then it turns into this big thing that we're going into battle with, and we're sort of fighting this experience and all this tension and so on. But pain is a label for a process. This is a really important point. Pain is a label for a process, and no two moments of pain are exactly the same. And we just need to take them one moment at a time. We ever only experience the pain right now. And all the additional pain about, oh my God, I've had it forever, I'm going to have it forever. That's happening in the mind. It's not happening in the body. So we can just take it one moment at a time. So I just to reiterate those points. With breath and with mindfulness, we're in the body, we're in the moment. It's tension release. Breath helps with tension release, and breath helps us see the fluid nature of things. So I was saying this is the key points of mindfulness, but breathing is such a brilliant way to access this. Breathing happens in the body, doesn't happen outside, it happens in the body. Breathing happens in the moment. The only breath you can feel is the one that's happening right now. We can release tension with the breath. Breathing is flowing. So if you think, I don't understand what she's talking about, that everything's changing, just tune into your breath. And your breath is a fluid process. So just to reiterate those points. Okay, so look, we've just got about 10 minutes left. So let's just do another little short practice together, another little breathing practice together, and then just a few final comments. So again, just asking yourself, how do I want to position my body? I know a lot of us haven't got many options, but you just might want to move your head a little bit. You might want to adjust your posture a little bit if you can. Let's do what Liz is doing and release our jaw. Pull a face. Gurning. That's what the actors call it. Make a noise. And release. Good. Closing the eyes if you want to, or else just lowering your gaze. Settling and resting into the body, into the moment. And the eyes be soft and the forehead soft, jaw soft. And being aware of breathing, however breathing is showing up for you. Allowing your awareness to rest inside that experience. And just noticing, are you holding your breath? And if you're holding your breath, just see if you can allow the out breath to be a little bit softer. And then the in breath will take care of itself. You've got pain in your body right now. Just notice, are you tensing against it, holding the breath against it? If you are, that's perfectly normal. But you could choose another way, which is to breathe into that awareness and release a little bit with the out-breath. Imagine that the awareness around the pain is becoming a little bit softer. If it gets too intense, and broadening awareness to be aware of the whole body. And of course, you can open your eyes at any point if it gets too intense. Let's see if we can be soft and gentle towards ourselves. How's the jaw? The jaw's tensed up again. We could soften a little bit. Imagine how your jaw feels like at the end of a yawn. And see if you can let the jaw be like that. Now the shoulders. Letting the shoulders fall away from the neck. Rest into gravity. And breathing. And you might notice that you keep tensing. That's normal. And every time you notice, you can breathe into that area and release a little bit with the out breath. That's the training. And then broaden awareness now to be aware of the whole body. Letting go of any effort, just resting, settling, absorbing. And as we begin to bring this little meditation to a close, what's it like to bring awareness to this transition from meditating to opening the eyes? Open the eyes when you're ready. And then if you want to move your body at all, just see if you can do that mindfully rather than automatically. So thinking about what your body wants within its capacity. And doing that with awareness and doing that with this soft breathing. So rather than immediately tensing and gripping, seeing if we can, I noticed Liz was doing something with her shoulders. So if we can move even a little bit and we want to move, just seeing if we can do it with awareness and do it with care. Good. Okay. So it's nearly time to finish, but again, I'd just be curious to hear from anybody about how that little practice was for you, what you noticed. Maybe how you feel having done it. Has had an effect on how you feel.
I fell asleep.
That's probably quite a good sign.
Is that right?
So how do you feel having had your little sleep?
Very good. I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I often think, I mean, that is definitely an occupational hazard of meditation, is going to sleep. But I often think that the words still go in on some level, because I always feel different. If I've gone to sleep and a meditation, the way I feel afterwards is different from if I've just had a nap.
Yes.
So I think the words are going in on some level. So that's good that you feel good having had a little sleep.
Your voice is very soothing. You have a wonderful voice.
It's good for sending people to sleep, I'm told.
I didn't fall asleep, but I do feel very relaxed
Good.
and
Good.
conscientious and awareness of my entire body, and not just the painful parts.
What did you say at the last bit? The pain.
Conscientious and awareness of my whole entire body, not just the painful
Ah,
parts.
that is wonderful, Julie. That is really wonderful. Yeah. That's the
Thank you.
practice. That's the mindfulness practice. Yeah.
Yep.
And then, you can be more aware of your whole world. So at the end of the session, I suggest you all look out the window. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, isn't it? So there's still daylight. Look at the sky, take in the world around you. And that can be really, really helpful. Good. So anybody else want to say anything? Any questions about anything we've done today? Yeah, Ron?
Yeah, I'm kind of new to this, but I have a problem with my neck, and I'm actually going to physical therapy. It has nothing to do with my injury. I have a spinal cord injury, but I don't have a good setup with the way I look at the computer. And I was on the computer for an hour and a half prior to this, and my neck was killing me. And as I breathe and let my neck drop and everything, my neck feels so much better.
Mm-hmm.
That is
And
brilliant.
it was painful to the point that I was almost gonna say I gotta go.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. So the thing to really, I mean, that's amazing what you just said. And all you've done is use your awareness to choose what you do with your mind and with your breathing. That's all you've done. You haven't gone to a physical therapist. You haven't gone anywhere. You haven't taken any drugs. All you've done is sat quietly for 10 minutes in that instance, and it's had that effect. And I think that's very, very empowering message for all of us. That's what I love about these methods. They're freely available, no equipment, and the consequences can be so strong, can't they? That you've gone from having a neck that was killing you to now feeling a lot more ease into your neck. So maybe immediately after this, you could really reflect on, well, what did I do there? What did I do that had that effect? And if anyone else has experienced benefit, or what did I do with my mind? What happened in that session that had that effect? And
thank you so much.
Because you did that for yourself, Ron. I guided you, but it was you that did that with your own awareness. So fantastic.
Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
Maybe just before we go, I've just got a couple of I meant to show this last week, but I didn't have a chance. But just if you want to follow up anything that I'm talking about, did I send this to you last time, Liz, to send out to people?
Yeah,
okay, good.
I'm not sure if I did, but I will make sure if I didn't that I do.
Okay, so there's my website, and then Breathworks is the company that I talked about, that we run mindfulness courses. But we've also got this community platform, completely free to join. And within that, we've got a group specifically for managing pain and illness. So that's a place where you can get support from other people. And I run these monthly sessions there. And it's really supportive group for people who want to use mindfulness to manage pain and illness. And then there's some books that I've written. So there's an 8-week program for managing pain, which is the book on the top right, You Are Not Your Pain, which is the American imprint.
I don't recall having all these slides, but I'll go check. And if I don't, if you could send this
Yeah,
one that
I'll
has
send this
more
all over to
slides.
you. Yeah, I'll send it all over to you. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, just in case any of you want to follow up anything we've done. But I'll be here next week, and we're going to be looking at thoughts, which is really it's so important, isn't it? We have something like 30,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So if you can get a handle on your thoughts, then that is obviously a really great thing. Because a lot of our thoughts are not the most helpful, as I'm sure many of you know.
They definitely aren't. we are often our worst critics, aren't
We
they?
certainly are.
Yeah.
We certainly
are. Thank you so much. This has been a delight and a help, and I've learned something new. And I hope we see everybody back here next Thursday. Is that right? Yes.
Thursday. Yeah, Thursday.
Losing track of the days.
And you're taping these. You're taping these sessions?
Yes, I'm recording them. The first one has been recorded, and if you did not get the email, look in your spam or junk folder, because I sent it out to everybody, and my emails are going, unfortunately, into spam and junk too often. So,
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you. I feel like I did a vacation. I've been on vacation.
Oh, fantastic.
After these classes.
That's good.
I forgot I was taking a shower and I had to rush out.
Good.
Beth, I may use that if you don't mind that this class. Okay, good.
I don't mind. I always feel like that when I do a mindfulness group. I told my mental health clinic in my town that they should really have mindfulness pain management, because I knew one of the therapists, she studied with John Kabat-Zinn. So why not have a group? I told them, most of your clients go out in the street and buy pain meds. Why not have a pain management group?
Yeah.
And they
exactly.
did it.
They did it. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Great.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Have a lovely weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye.